What's happening, guys? It's your girl, Mina. Welcome back to my channel. Sometimes I forget to stop playing the stream just because I'm vibing to the intro song. It happens to me all the time. The intro is meant to be like 20 seconds. I end up doing it for a minute because I just get lost in it. Big up to everyone. You lot know what it is. Manchester United versus Spurs. It's only right for this preview. I get the one and only Fuad. They say Cadani, but I'm sure it's Adani, no?
Yes, I
Isn't
like
it?
that.
Yeah. I thought so.
I have a rule for like, hey, non-Somali people can get away with Cadani. You see Somali people?
I knew it. I've been trying to figure out for ages. You know how many people say to me, Fuad Cadani? I'm like, bro, that's not his name. I'm sure it's Fuad Adani. And they're like, no, but it's Cadani. I'm like, yeah, never mind.
Trying to get people to say your name correctly, you know they're gonna butcher it, man. It's just like, you know what? Let's just roll with the Cadani. But Somali,
we go with the Adani. Big up to Fuad, SDS's very own DR Sports. What else? Football culture movement.
Everywhere
on Saturday Social tomorrow on Sky, so make sure you lot watch that as well. Big up to Fuad. How you doing, first and foremost?
Very well, man. Can't complain, honestly. Just keeping busy, as you said there. And then obviously on the football front, Spurs making a few moves in the January window, which is unlike us, to be fair as well. I know, trust me, even I'm not used to this. Normally we're haggling and hassling to kind of deadline day, and we're always one of the kind of last kind of movers there, but honestly, can't complain. So coming into OT this weekend, so serious things now. You know what I'm saying? Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Firstly, I have a question for you because I was talking about this on stream with Saeed, but I was like, let me ask Fuad, what has changed at Spurs in terms of the recruitment? Because it seemed like under Conte, Spurs just signed anyone that they felt like it. Whereas now it seems like they're signing players that they might not be superstars, but the manager is keen to bring them in. Are they basically backing the manager?
It's twofold. I think even when Conte was here, to be fair, I think the recruitment had improved from kind of how it was the past maybe 4 or 5 years before that, where kind of under Pochettino you saw a little stagnation in the squad, and then after that it became kind of Lo Celso, Ndombele, signings that hadn't really worked out. Sessegnon, Jack Clark, Sergio Reguilon, Gareth Bale returning back on loan. Like it seemed like a weird kind of 3-4 year period where the club was just kind of stagnating. But honestly, I've got to give the biggest credit to Fabio Paratici, who is the sporting director or director of football that came in, I think, same time as Conte or maybe a few months before him. But he's the one that's really kind of helped us move the needle in the market in terms of using his really and truly little black book of connections that he's got back in Serie A. Because when you look at all the kind of talents we've signed in terms of Romero, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Destiny Udogi, even Dragosin, who's now just come in the past couple of days, all coming from Serie A, all coming from ex-Juventus players, if you like, which Pratici's previously worked with. So honestly, as much as I'd love to say, you know, the board and Ange are kind of moving the needle, he's the one that I really think has come in and put things in place where, all right, we have the primary target, and if we don't get him, let's have at least 3 or 4 kind of backup options, if that makes sense. I remember even Tomiyasu, before he signed for Arsenal, playing for Cagliari or Bologna, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He was linked heavily with us, and he was one of the ones I was like, oh my God, I don't know who this guy is, but this is a bit of brilliant scouting from Italy. We ended up getting Emerson because that was the alternative that he had when we lost out. But I think Fabio Paratici, for me, I think Spurs fans now especially will give a lot of credit, because initially when he came in, as you said, last year, it seemed a bit scattergun kind of approach where it was just anybody and everybody we can get. But as time has kind of gone on a little bit, there's still a few hit and misses here and there. I think no matter what type of recruitment you have at any club, you're going to have those. But for the most part, he's gone young, he's gone high potential, he's gone with players who've kind of shown potential at their previous club, but are now ready for that next step up, if you like, and just need a platform. And we're kind of the perfect place to be fair.
It's not only high potential you lot gone for, but your manager also likes to play a high line. And I think a lot of everyone I speak to about, you know, this game, especially on Sunday, is that United will utilize that high line, like we've seen other teams do it against you lot. But does that make you feel any different, especially with, you know, the likes of Rashford, Garnacho, Højlund, or quick people that can kind of run in behind? Does that make you concerned, or do you feel more comfortable knowing that Van der Ven, you know, a lot of your backline is basically quite solid?
To be fair, it's been a bit mishmashy over the past couple of weeks, obviously, with Romero suspension, injuries. Van der Ven's been out. Dragoson's just come in now as well. We've kind of had Emerson and Davis really papering over the cracks for the past couple of weeks, which, to be fair, I think for a lot of Spurs fans has gone better than what we thought it would. But that high line that you spoke about, I think definitely is going to be a risk factor. And I think it's one that we've kind of measured pretty well this season, I think. And if you look at even the reverse fixture back at the Tottenham Stadium, the first half, you guys took crazy advantage of that high line. The amount of times where in the first half you saw long diagonals getting played into Garnacho on the left, and he was just 1v1 with Porro every time. And that was still early in the season where I felt like Porro hadn't got that confidence back under him that he's really playing with now. And it was just, he was just going at him. And you lot had maybe 2 or 3 chances to really make it 2-0 in that first half and could have been out of sight. But that high line, it always brings that little bit of kind of danger, if you like, we play with. But that's also what allows us to put our imprint on games. And I think you look at the past couple of games where we've had injuries, we've had suspensions, we've had players now go into international tournament and just still been able to stick to his method, stick to that high line, stick to playing out of the back, stick to still creating a lot of chances within that as well. So for me, as much as it's a risk and you've got Rashford and Garnacho, I'm happy to stick to the guns. I remember when we were going to the Emirates, same thing was being said. Arsenal fans were telling me, hey, come bring that high line over here. I promise you we're going to cook you lot. We went there and every man walked out of there. They were like, you know what? Spurs looking all right, you know. Yeah. So I'm hoping now we come OT again and it's kind of the same story again.
It's difficult, you know. I'm not going to lie. As a United fan, it's kind of difficult because our record is not that great this season. Even at Old Trafford, it's not that great. You lot are coming with the opposite, where you have a better record. I think away from home, your record, you've just lost 2 out of your 10 Premier League away games. At home, I think we've won half of our games at home this season. We've seen other teams like flipping Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, come in, slapping us 3-0 at home. And I feel like, you know, you lot are catching United at a difficult time. The reverse leg at Spurs, I think, was an interesting time because that's the beginning of the season. We've just come off of a win against Wolves to start the season, and then obviously we had you guys. I think that was more interesting because United didn't really find themselves in a solidified position. And I'm not gonna lie, that game and just all the games this season we've had against the big clubs, we've been in it for most of the game. For the majority of the game, we're in it. And our biggest issue, United's biggest issue is that they do not take their chances. I think that's their biggest issue. Talking about chances, Garnacho, I think, has been directly involved this season in the last actually 5 games with 4 goals. So that's 2 goals, 2 assists in the league. And I think if there's going to be a threat on them wings, it's going to come from Garnacho. Do you see any player that can threaten you lot?
To be fair, that one you mentioned there, Garnacho, I actually want to get your thoughts actually on even like the move to the right wing, because I almost feel like nowadays wingers, they always play inverted. If you're a right footer, you get put on the left wing and you get told cut in and shoot as many times as you like. And as far as I was aware, you almost needed to earn that. You almost needed to prove that you can score and contribute from that inverted role. Bro, go and earn your stripes on the right flank. Go and get down the byline, do the hard yards, and almost learn your trade, I feel like, on both wings, especially when you're kind of just breaking through into the first team. And I think Garnacho, the way this season, he's just kind of taken the ownership, taken the accountability of the attack. He's seen Rashford's not delivering. He's seen Højlund's having a rough time, and he's just been like, do you know what? I know I'm 19, but I can still deliver a few moments here and there. Whether it was in the Copenhagen game where you lot went on to lose, the Everton goal, it's just moments this season. That's one thing I really got to credit Garnacho, where I look at him and I'm like, okay, maybe technically or ability-wise, you might not think his ceiling is the highest, but mentally, the way that kid is driven, you've got to respect. He backs himself to the hills. Do you know what I mean? So I think he is one that can, if he's on his game on that day, he can be a threat. And then the other one, of course, who scored last week, if I'm not mistaken, playing in the number 9 role, Rashford. I think if he can find his goal-scoring boots in this second half of the season, we're now what? Literally past the halfway mark.
Past the halfway mark,
yeah. He needs to find his shooting boots and almost look at the first half of the season as, all right, that was a write-off, that was that. This is almost like a new chapter now. Use the second half of the season to really turn it up, man, because I don't know where he's been this first half of the season. And in terms of that's mentally, that's on the pitch, that's goals, that's performances, that's the press. It's just nothing looks there. And I think if you're gonna have any success in that team, you're gonna need your front line to be firing.
No, I agree. Especially you bring up a valid point with Garnacho. I feel like, and this is it's not related, but this is what annoyed me more about the Sancho situation is that the right hand side has been up for grabs for the last, I think, 6 to 9 months. There's not really been an answer to that, and it's crazy when United spent 200 million basically on trying to find an answer. Don't have an answer. And one thing has been refreshing with Garnacho is to see him switch to the right hand side and not complain, just take on the challenge. And I feel like because he's young, because he's breaking into the team, that's what you have to do. You kind of get put in a position you might not want to play it, but you have to just make the most of that position. And I think Garnacho on the right hand side is actually a bigger threat than on the left because he's 2-footed. He can cut in, shoot, get a ball into the box, and he's very good 1v1. Like 1v1 against the defender, even against Spurs in the reverse leg, I was very much off the edge of my seat anytime he's 1v1 against a fullback, because I think he can take them on, he could get past them and create something for United. Unfortunately, we're in a position where we could heavily rely on that. We can heavily rely on, especially in this game on Sunday, we could heavily rely on those balls across to the wingers, attacking their man, getting past.
The only thing I would say maybe to negate that is our fullbacks at the moment, I would say, are probably the most informed players along with Vicario. I think when you look at Porro and Udogie, they're almost like the prototype of what you want in a modern day fullback. The ability to overlap, inverted, just the range of passing that they have, the way they're able to get involved in attacks. It's defensively as well. I think Porro has improved massively from what people thought he was last year. So on that right side, I think coming up in this game, I actually feel more confident if he was 1v1 versus a Garnacho. And Destiny, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen many people get the better of him. The guy is a 6'2" left back, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't find many units like that, bro. That brother is Nigerian through and through, I'm telling you. So I think Garnacho will have a tough task on that day, but he is the one that I think, yeah, you lot are definitely looking at.
Do you not think you're going to miss the players like because Basuma, I think Papi Sarr is off to at AFCON, and Son is obviously at the Asia Cup. Do you feel like you're going to miss that heavily, especially in the midfield? Because I can't lie, the last game against Spurs, I think Basuma bossed it.
Yeah.
And he's been quite great for you lot in midfield. Obviously, I don't want to brag, but we got Kobbie Mainoo. So we got a little something there that wasn't there in the last leg. We got a little something in midfield, a light something, yeah. But I also feel like in terms of the goals, because you obviously got Richarlison, he scored 5 in the last 5 Premier League games for you lot, which is the most. I think he scored 5 games in like nearly 50 Premier League games, and now he's got 5 in 5 already. So, and obviously you brought Timo Werner, who's never scored against United, and you know what? Records have been broken a lot this season for United. So I hope that's a record that's not broken. But are you worried about the players you're missing rather than the players that will be there?
Oh, 100%. I think when you look at Sarr and Basuma, the double pivot they've been able to perform in there, I feel like since maybe the Luton sending off, Basuma's performance levels haven't been the same as pre-red card, if you like. Pre-red card, as you say, when he played against you guys, some of the early games, he was just absolutely dominating in that kind of first phase and second phase. But as the season has worn off, I think Sarr's injury has had a little knock-on effect playing next to Højbjerg. He doesn't have that same chemistry with him. Sarr, for me, is more the bigger miss out of the two of them. I think the engine that he's able to give us, the legs, the way the passing, even, I think is very underrated. I think he is one that has really gone under the radar in terms of how key. Basuma gets all the credit for the defensive work. Maddison gets all the credit for kind of the attacking and, you know, all the final ball stuff. But Sarr, I really feel like is kind of the glue that really holds it together. The one benefit we do have is Bentancur has come back a little bit early from injury. So he kind of maybe slots into that Basuma role straight away. It's just a case of who plays next to him. Højbjerg, for me, his legs are a little bit gone under him. I know he's
I don't really rate Højbjerg like that.
He's one that I just feel like we've moved beyond the need for him, if that makes sense. I think 3 or 4 years ago when we were really crying out for a defensive mid, he came in solid, plugged the gap, but now we've kind of evolved from that and we're a lot more ball dominant and he's just not suited to that. So him and Skip are kind of the other options you look at. So definitely going to be missing a little something in that midfield, especially you still know Matters as well. But then I look at kind of your midfield. I haven't seen your midfield able to grab games by the scruff of the neck and dominate from that area of the pitch. So I'm looking at it in terms of Ange has been able to still be able to create chances, play our way with players out injured. I expect him to still try and kind of do the same now, even with these players missing.
Yeah, I think with the part you mentioned about United's midfield is interesting because the biggest issue we have, I think, in midfield is physicality and just strength. So often I'd see, we get blown over in games in the midfield. Inevitably, it happens all the time. Whether it was Mount playing, Ericsson, McTominay, Bruno, whoever you play in that midfield, we just get overrun. And I feel like now that Ericsson's back, he brings that more deep lying technical passing ability, but at the absence of obviously physicality. And it's interesting you bring up that point because a lot of, I don't know, December, November time, a lot of, there was a lot of Ten Hag out, and the biggest example that was given was the fact that Ange was still playing the way that his philosophy and his style of football, even with a lot of injuries you lot had. I think you had more than 10 players out at some point. A lot of them also your starters. So a lot of the time people look at Ten Hag and think, okay, well, if Ange is able to do it, why can't Ten Hag? The one confidence that I have is that Kobe Mainoo hopefully will play. I'm hoping the manager plays him. Casemiro's back from injury. Ericsson also back from injury. I think Bruno Fernandes has to play tidy. He has to play responsible. He has to look after the ball and create chances. I think he's created the most chances in the league this season. And it's crazy because United have only scored like 22 goals or 23 goals or something. We've barely scored. Whereas you guys, complete opposite, have scored nearly double the goals that we've scored. So even though today I did say I think United could win 2-0, I'm looking back at it and I'm thinking, well, the table's saying otherwise because Spurs have scored double what we've scored this season and we've conceded a lot more than kind of what you lot have. Do you feel like Richarlison, I think Johnson is the other kid, which I still never understood his price tag, but who is a United fan to talk about price tags? Kulusevski, obviously. Do you think they can kind of grab the game by the scruff of the neck, like you said, in the absence of Son?
I think they kind of have to be fair. And I think they have to kind of use the momentum of how they've played the past couple of games. Brennan Johnson really has taken that kind of right wing position where Kulusevski's been in and out of the side and playing kind of more in the 10 role. He's really kind of stepped up and provided a few assists from there. Richarlison, as you said, I don't ever think he's ever going to fill that gap properly and be like a prolific 20 goal a season striker. But in moments like this, when we do need you, when, the squad is down in numbers, can you step up? Can you paper over the cracks just for that kind of sustained little period? Similar with Lo Celso the past couple of weeks, to be fair. Give him some credit. Even Ben Davies, like they've been able to come in and kind of paper over the cracks. So this is now a moment where we really need him. The next couple of weeks, him, Richarlison, Johnson, and Werner, it's not the front lines, I would have dreamed of at the start of the season, if I'm honest, but it's one we have now, and we've just kind of got to hope that they're able to provide enough of the threat. Because I look at Johnson, I look at Werner, and I'm like, your pace immediately, the two of you should be able to stretch defenses, should be able to get in positions. Richarlison, you have that doggedness about you to chase lost causes, to be the initiator of the press. The problem is once those chances fall for you in a game like this as well, where chances might not be too much playing away at Old Trafford, you got to take your chances when they come. So that's the only part where you kind of worry with those three is clinical wise, can you really rely on them for goals? But at the moment, they seem to have done a decent enough job. You can only hope it kind of papers over into this game.
It's one of them ones where I hope it doesn't. But firstly, it's one of them ones where my biggest worry when it comes to like the players that you mentioned, especially with the speed that they have and Richarlison pressing that back line, is United is shaky building up from the back. We are very shaky. We've got Ange Onana sometimes he's great with the ball, but sometimes has that misplaced pass in him. I think Johnny Evans is crazy. It's funny to say this. Johnny Evans, I think, is the most composed on the ball in terms of our back line. We got Diogo Dalot. We got Wan-Bissaka. I love Wan-Bissaka. I'm not going to lie, but when he's got the ball at his feet, I genuinely feel like he's playing on ice skates. I genuinely feel like he's playing on ice skates when he's dribbling or he's got the ball in his feet. We obviously got Rafael Varane, who looks awkward doing it, but he does it well. Yeah. And then Lisandro Martinez also coming back from injury as well, which I don't know if I genuinely don't think he'll play because I don't think he's match fit just yet. Yeah. But he's up for selection. My only worry, like I said, is being pressed, if it falls to those players, the Richarlisons, the Kulusevskis, the Werners, the Johnsons, I'm not too sure. I can't say it won't be a goal, but we could see that happening. I genuinely feel like we can see that happening. I don't do combined 11s. I hate doing combined 11s because I just think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people like to do that. But instead of doing a combined 11, I'm gonna ask you: is there any player in the United team that you would take right now in your starting 11? Guys, the silence is definite.
I can't lie to you.
Silence is definite.
Are you talking like my squad now in terms of the?
Is there just any player that you would think I would take that? Yeah, I would take that player in a heartbeat. Because I could tell you who I'd take. I would take Son at United immediately, but he's not even available. But is there like a light Rashford?
Previous years, I would have said like a Bruno, but since Maddison came in the summer, honestly, I don't feel the need for that. I felt like Bruno honestly would have been a perfect player for us. Like we needed someone with that goals and that kind of attitude and desire to kind of win. And I feel like he could have all that kind of wasteful passing and hero ball he tries to do at United. He could have definitely got away with that shit at Spurs. So I always felt like it would have been a perfect move if he came to us that January instead of you guys. But to be fair, I'm thinking we need frontline additions, and your front line is bleeding at this point. So Rashford, I've never really been the biggest fan of. I felt like he's a player capable of good streaks, but ultimately I don't think he's someone who you can rely on season in, season out. Højlund, I would have said in the summer, to be fair, he's someone who we should sign as a Harry Kane replacement, but I don't know if it's really going to click for him this season at United. It's probably maybe next season where you kind of see a bit of growth from his game. I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. Defense and goalkeeper, it's set. My midfield trident, I love it. With the Saar, Basuma, Maddison. Wingers, I've got Kulusevski, Son. Richarlison would be the only one I'd try and replace, and you ain't got no one I'd be interested in.
You know what's so funny is the fact that you're saying, you know what, Richarlison is the only one I replace, but I still won't replace him with
I'll be real with you. I don't think there's anyone like, and that's a real indictment on like United, if that makes sense. Like of the situation where you're in, where your players, I don't know what it is. They just don't seem.
Where do you think it's going wrong? As an outsider, I always like to hear other people's opinions from how they see it going wrong. Do you think it's going wrong with the manager? Do you think it's going wrong with the players? The whole Jadon Sancho's thing. What's your opinion on that? Because he was he was meant to be touted as the next best thing.
I think for me, where he's kind of messed up is ditching his philosophy and almost going with, all right, we'll go with what works for you guys and I'll work with kind of what I'm given. I felt like he should have stuck with his guns. Whoever it doesn't work with, bomb them out of the squad. And I think the United fans would have been more patient and kind of more, I don't know, patient really, if he kind of just stuck with his methods. And I think when you look at his signings, I think that's where he's really got it wrong for me in the past year or so, in terms of guys like Amrabat. Guys like Mason Mount for me was similar to Havertz signing for Arsenal. It just didn't make sense. And I personally like Mason Mount as a player. I think he would have made sense if you signed like a proper 8 and then you've got kind of Mount covering a bunch of positions, maybe challenging Bruno for his position. But you signed him and I don't really know where he fits. Do you know what I mean? And Anthony, the way you got finessed for that deal. And it's solely on Ten Hag, because his relationship was the reason why he wanted to go and get that guy. So it's things like that where I kind of look at it as much as I've always liked Ten Hag and thought I think he'll come good at United, he's kind of shot himself in the foot almost too many times. And
are you glad that Spurs never went for him in the end? Because obviously he was linked to the Spurs job.
I think it would have been a different situation. I think
you genuinely think that?
Yeah, I think it would have been a different situation. I think if we gave him someone like a Paratici or someone like that, I think that's the problem. You lot almost gave him too much control early on. And I get it, because United have almost structurally been so bad. You finally find a manager who you think has the right ethos, has the right tactics and coaching ability, has the right man management. But I think what a lot of the United board and even fans failed to realize was Ten Hag was in a system that allowed him to flourish. He's got one of the best academies in the world. He's got Mark Overmars, Van der Sar, who are above him, who are doing all his recruitment, all his signings, and he essentially just has to go on the training ground and do the coaching. But now it's top to bottom. He's running the ship, and once you have that kind of responsibility on you, listen, only certain man can handle that type of pressure. Only Fergie and set man can do the top to bottom. Let me run the ship. Get director of footballs in place. Get people around you who can do the job properly. I think getting rid of Ranić was a big mistake on his behalf, because Ranić pointed out, I felt like, a lot of the issues at United. And Ten Hag came in and kind of was just like, nah, I'll do it my way. I think discipline-wise, I think the way he handled the Ronaldo situation, spot on. I think if a player falls out, does that, completely get out of my squad. The Sancho situation, I agree as well. I think he's handled that perfectly. A player doesn't want to, pull their weight, doesn't want to apologize once they've spoken out of turn on social media. Hey, I'm running the ship, baby. It's my way or the highway. I'm sorry. I'm always rocking with that. I like it when a manager kind of imposes his authority. The only issue becomes is, how does that player react now, type of thing. And I think Sancho obviously took it the wrong way. And now if he goes on to Dortmund and does well, it kind of looks crazy for him. But for me, I think Sancho should have taken a leaf out of guys like Wan-Bissaka, who was on the transfer list, came back into the squad, starting regularly. Guys like McTominay, guys like Maguire. Like, there have been guys who've been bombed out of the squad and come back in. But you somehow think you're above that because you're talented. Don't run with me.
It's funny because I think Sancho was linked to Spurs in the summer before you lot signed Maddison. You're not buying that it was legit interest?
Not legit interest. That was the Manchester United Evening News, just trying to get some interest in their boy. But I don't think
I thought it was genuine. I think it sounded genuine just because it was reported.
Harry Kane, who was our greatest ever player, I think at his highest earned 250 grand a week, and that was him having Levy over a barrel. You think Jadon Sancho, who is strutting around with his laces undone, is going to walk into our training ground at 350 grand a week? You are out your mind. You must not know who Daniel Levy is.
That is proper penny pincher. But also, I thought it was legit only because it was a 45 million price tag, and apparently that was too high. So I feel like that kind of set the precedent for what people or what clubs might feel like, how they feel about Jadon Sancho. I agree 100%. Everything you've said about the situation at United under Ten Hag, just under the ownership, the lack of football direction. I totally agree with it. But also, we can't really forget that Spurs were once the laughing stock. I feel like you lot are still kind of the laughing stock, because you lose one game, you lose 2 games on the bounce. All I ever hear is, it's the history of the Spurs.
Do you know what
every single time?
We're an easy target. That's all it is. But in reality, it's always one of those, you're punching down. I always say, the minute you're punching down with Spurs, it shows how far you've dropped off.
You lot are 8 points ahead of us right now. Do you know how mad that is? 8 points ahead.
And do you know what though? That should almost give you hope in terms of thinking that it doesn't take something grand to change a club. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes people think from top to bottom, United need to get a new board, a new director of football, a new manager, 25 new players, and then it's going to work. We've just seen Chelsea do that the past 18 months. How's that gone? So it's not always the right method. I think you always need like a central point. And I think luckily for us, Ange has been that. And Ange, in a way, got fortunate with Jose and Conte being big names coming in before that and failing so badly. So therefore, now it's like when the little guy who doesn't have a big reputation or a big name comes in, we're like, all right, you know what? Let's see how this goes. And there wasn't that much pressure going into this season from a Spurs fan's perspective. Whereas from United, no matter what you do, there's pressure, bro.
But don't you feel like you lot are in the position that we were in last year, where Ten Hag came in first season, did well?
Last year, you lot were ahead of the curve. And I think last year, even I thought, this season was going to be a backward step, because I was like, what is a progression going to be from last year? Last year, you got to an FA Cup final. You won a Carabao Cup. You got top 4. Unless you're going to go challenge for the Champions League, go on challenge for the title, improvement is going to be either the same of what you did last year, or you're going to get dumped out of the domestic trophies and you're going to be competing for top 4. For me, I think this season should have been more about creating Ten Hag's culture, creating Ten Hag's idea of what his kind of football looks like. But instead, it's just felt like the same kind of slog of what you had the second half of the season. Now, you have had a lot of injuries within that have maybe hindered kind of how he wants to play or whatever, because in certain games, I have felt like you lot have looked good. Was it the Palace game in the League Cup? I remember when a bunch of
that's probably the only good performance I can think of.
And I remember thinking, this is the first time where I feel like this is what Ten Hag wants to play. And it all seemed to come from when he's trusted the kids. And I think that's one thing over the past couple of weeks where I've actually been like, hey, this is a bit more of the Ten Hag that we knew at Ajax, where you're throwing in the Wembanyama, I don't know, Kwambala.
I said Wembanyama, like he's an NBA player.
Wembanyama's the Spurs NBA
he's
player.
an NBA player.
I meant Kwambala, yeah. But Kwambala, probably Mainu, like Garnacho, the way he's just given him free reign this season. So a lot of them youngsters, he needs to do more of that. And I think that will almost light a fire under the old guys who are just kind of resting on their laurels, that you just feel like.
Yeah, I agree with you in some bits, but I do feel like I said, I feel like Ange could be in a position. One thing that works for him is that his way of playing has been consistent. His way of playing, no matter the opponent, no matter the competition, no matter the starting lineup, it's been consistent. But one thing I will say is that United, unfortunately, did well last season. So it's one of them ones where we take 2 steps forward, or we take 1 step forward and then take 2 steps back. I feel like that was inevitably what was going to happen. Where Ten Hag, I feel like, has effed up this season is it's not the fact that he's abandoned his philosophy and the way that he's playing. I don't think he's put the ball in the court of the players and saying, you know what, I'm going to adapt to you lot and I'm going to play the way that you want me to. I think he's playing survival football. So he's just doing what can get the best result, because essentially if he has to grind out results with his style of football and the way that he wants to play, it won't always guarantee a sort of result. But unfortunately, you know, he's gone the opposite and he's decided, you know what, I'm going to play survival football and just try my best to get results no matter what it takes me, whether it means playing Scott McTominay as a basically second striker, whether it means, you know, playing a single pivot. I'm going to do what it takes to kind of get results. And I feel like that's what kind of happens. Whereas, you know, on the flip side, Ange has come in. I'm not gonna lie, I knew nothing about Ange when he came into the job. I read a few things about people that I follow online that follow the Scottish leagues, so they were quite familiar. But I knew nothing of him. So when he came in and, you know, his personality got the gift of the gab, as some people like to say, has a good personality, and it seems to be like he's everything that Ten Hag wasn't to Spurs. Mm-hmm. When Spurs were looking at possibly, you know, bringing in Ten Hag. Do you feel like this season, before you lot went on that, I think it was like 3 games without a win, or was it 4 games without a win? You went
1 point in 15 out of 15. So yeah, I think it was a draw out of last,
and then bare losses.
Yeah.
At any point, did you feel like you lot were genuinely in a title race, or do you feel like rival fans just say that you guys are in a title race?
I said it, yeah. I think I remember when it was like 6-7 games into the season and we were still flying. I said, brother, Sky Sports, all of you media journals that are on this, you know, hey, we love Ange. I said, get off our meat, please, because I know these tricks of what you lot do. Up until January, and Spurs have done this, it's low-key our own fault, because we've done this for so many seasons where up until Christmas, we'll be in that top 3, we'll be, you know, 1 point off, 2 point off, and then come all the graphics of, you know, all the managers stood side by side, you know, oh, can Spurs do it this year if they go big in January? When us as Spurs fans, we know there's going to be like an inevitable drop-off because we have a scarce 11. I remember dropping a video on FCM saying, you know, if we get an injury to Maddison, if we get an injury to Romero or Van der Beek, lo and behold, it all happened in 1 game. And it just goes to show you kind of how bare this squad is. So to challenge for a title, no chance, man. No chance. And especially when you've got the winning machine that is Manchester City. Listen, go and ask some other boys across North London what it feels like to go up against that. It ain't easy.
Don't worry. See you again, Donsu. They're going to prison. They're going to prison, all of them, every single one of them. So we ain't gonna worry about that for too long. But one thing you mentioned Arsenal. Because I feel like Spurs have got a bit of what's the word? I don't want to say character, but they got a bit of swagger back. Especially against your North London rivals. I mean, I think there's a stat here against Manchester United. You lot have, in the last 5 games, United have won 3, you lot won 1, and we drew 1. And funnily enough, that one win came this season, and then that draw was, I think, towards the end of last season when we drew 2-2, and then before that we beat you three times in a row. So that's why I say I feel like Spurs have got a bit of their swagger back. Not completely, because I still think you guys are inevitable of choking. Letting go leads. I mean, you went from being top at one point to being 4th. Still 8 points, 8 points clear from us. But that doesn't really say much because it was shit.
Yeah. It's not a good barometer, exactly.
It's not the best kind of barometer to level it up against. Quickly before we wrap it up, obviously Friday evening, so I don't want to be here all night. Scoreline prediction. Be bold, be brave, be a troll. I don't really care, but be realistic. Do you think you can do the double over United this season?
Do you know what? It's funny enough because previous years going to OT, I've always been like, write this one off. Maybe we can catch them at our ground, but at OT, I think there was only one year where Christian Eriksen, I think, scored in like 27 seconds or something like that, I remember, or Lucas Moura crashing the double. There's only been like a few times where we've been able to go to OT and kind of pull over those results, but I'll be real with you. I fancy us to go there and get some. I just don't feel like you lot have, I don't know, that togetherness at the moment. You're really kind of papering over the cracks. And if you lot aren't able to kind of, I don't know, find your feet in that first half an hour, I would even say, United show. Once that kind of first half an hour fizz kind of wears off,
20 minutes,
that was full time. And I think that's one thing with Spurs I have seen is a lot of character in second half in games where actually going back to that reverse fixture, similar like that, you guys dominated that first half, should have been 2-0 outside, but we just kept coming. Substitutions were made, we kept coming. So I'm going 2-1 Spurs win. I actually think we'll go there, we'll sneak something, and worst case scenario, I think we'll leave there with a draw. I actually don't think we lose this though.
That's crazy. Coming to Old Trafford saying you're basically leaving with something, whether it's a point or 3.
I saw Dom Solanke come there and leave with something and crash it all over set, man. So, hey, I know we're going to leave with something, you know what I'm saying? I've seen a couple man come up there. Hey, ain't that hard these days.
The only thing that scares me, like I said, is you lot are capable of scoring in it. You lot scored double that we've scored in the league this year. And our scoring record ain't been that great. Our record at home ain't been that great. But one thing I will say is against the bigger clubs this year, it seems like we're up for it. We put up a fight. We put in a good performance. But predominantly most of the game, if United can take their chances, if we can be clinical, if we could take, if we get chances in the first 25-ish minutes and United can go 1-0 up, I say United are winning 2-1. But if it's one of them games where it's going in halftime 0-0, that leaves me a bit worried. Number one, because, United just don't take their chances. And number two, I do not know what changes Ten Hag will make if he makes any in the game. His changes are very unpredictable. Right now, I'll say, I don't even know what the starting 11 would be. But I know the front three will be Rashford, Højlund, and Garnacho. Between the three of them, please, ya Allah, I hope one of them has one goal. Just one goal for me in the first half. That's all I ask for. I'm going to say 2-1 because I'm shameless. Yeah. And I'll never come here and say, if I got a guest, I will never sit here and say, yeah, we're going to lose to you lot. I will never say solely for that reason.
You got to hold it down.
and you know what? Come to me after the game. I'll hold the L. Like, I'm sticking with 3 Hey. I have to stick with that, man. I gotta be shameless, man. It is what it is. But big up to everyone. You lot know what it is. Big up to Fuad for stopping by for this preview. First and foremost, tell them where they can find you. But also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, Fuad will be on Sky Sports tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. I think it is.
10:30, yeah.
10:30 Saturday social. So make sure you lot check it out and let them know where they can find you on socials, etc.
Fuad Cadani or Fuad Cadani on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube, and then FCM podcast and SDS as well. Any of them, you'll catch.
He's everywhere. You can't miss him. Yeah. He's everywhere. But big up to everyone. Big up to Fuad, guys. I hope you have a wonderful Friday night. Let me know in the comments below what your predictions are for the scoreline on Sunday, and I'll be back on Sunday after the game for a post-match stream. You lot know what it is. Until next time, big up Fuad. It's your girl Mina. Peace.